Criminal charges. Donald Trump is considering criminal charges for USAID staff after Doge uncovers wild abuse. Boy, do I got some stories for you. $18 million per month to an empty migrant facility. And how about the story of John Podesta's slush fund? We got Lee Zeldin at the EPA, and apparently they uncovered that, I think, was it $375 billion? Is that the number? Can I just jump to this real quick? Make sure I get the number right. $375 billion were being handed out to charities over climate change, and some of them had been formed only 1 month prior. Doesn't sound real, does it? Now, as most of you know, Donald Trump has been calling out waste, fraud, and abuse. And the response we got from Democrats was, well, how do we know it's fraud? Okay, well, right now we've got this Supreme Court ruling where they basically said they're abstaining from this. Okay, so it's so stupid complicated. Trump says don't pay these things out. The lower court says you have to pay them out. Not literally, but technically. It's so weird. All right, let's try this again. Trump says don't pay this out. A lower court says we're freezing that order. So that means they have to get paid out. Trump appeals to the appellate court, who says we have no jurisdiction. The Supreme Court then issues a temporary stay so that the money isn't being spent. And then just the other day, the Supreme Court said we're vacating the stay. The lower court is you do your thing, which means Trump now has to post haste pay $2 billion, or the federal government does, under the presumption, as Trump has issued this order, that it's fraudulent. There's been no ruling on the merits. People are arguing that the work was already completed, so it has to be paid. But can we stop and ask about what the work was? When we're talking about someone getting a contract to teach gender studies, or how about this? Throw all that out. You want to make the argument that someone proposed, I'll do gender studies for $10 million. You want to pay them? Fine. They did the work. How about that? What about an empty migrant facility? $18 million per month going to an empty facility. Now, I don't know that that was actually USAID funding, but when you have things like that, perhaps Trump can say, I ain't paying that. Somebody was funneling money to a buddy for bunk reasons. And you can't simply argue, but work was done. Oh, okay. Let me offer this up to you, to all the liberals and Democrats defending these programs. How about you tell that to the IRS? Come on, let's play this game. When you send your buddy $1 million every month, and his job is listed as migrant services, and then they find out his office is empty, there's nobody there, and homie isn't even living anywhere near the area. Let's say you play that game and then tell the IRS that. The questions I got for these nonprofits is, where's the IRS in this regard? All that money being funneled around, and there's no investigation by the IRS. I'll let you guys understand. I'll let you know. If you did as I described, the IRS will come after you so fast your head will spin. So when Donald Trump sees these programs and says, stop payment, we should stop payment. Now, here's the best part. Despite the fact that Donald Trump is being blocked, sort of, by the Supreme Court, they're basically doing nothing. So it's not like they're literally saying pay the money. They're saying we out. At the State of the Union address, the not so State of the Union, Trump said, thank you very much to John Roberts. Won't forget it. And now there's a great conspiracy theory. No joke. Trump's responded saying, I was thanking him for swearing me in. Like, thank you for making me president and doing this. You won't regret it. And they're acting like there's some secret quid pro quo between the Supreme Court and Donald Trump, despite the fact Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts keep siding against him. You got to love it, my friends. All right, well, let's jump into the story. Before we do, you got to go to castbrew.com. You got to buy Cast Brew coffee. Ian's Graphene Dream is back in stock. Homie sold 250 bags yesterday. You can't stop him. You can't stop Ian, man. 250 bags of Ian's Graphene Dream sold yesterday. This dude, you're going to see him. Ian's going to pull up in, like, I don't know, a Lambo or something with shades, and he's going to be all iced up, and he's like, sup? And it's because you guys keep buying his coffee. Okay, well, we'll keep buying it. I'm glad you guys like it. It's our best seller now. Appalachian Nights is still number one. Check this out. You can see how it lines up. Appalachian Nights is still number one, but that's all time. Ian's Graphene Dream is going to take over in a little bit. Go to castbrew.com. And don't forget to also go to rumble.com/TimcastIRL. Join Rumble Premium using promo code TIM10. And you'll get the Green Room podcast. Do I have the Green Room show? Let me pull this up for you guys. Here we go. Last night we had 6'7" Kevin talking about the things he'd seen. This dude's great. Yesterday he was explaining how Oakland has become like the Wild West and how he's gone on the ground. He's telling these crazy stories of going to the border and smugglers. And then it's like the craziest place he's ever been to. It's Oakland, California. Under Democrat leadership, it's now the Wild West. So that was a really interesting conversation. Plus, we got all of the other Green Room behind the scenes podcasts. You don't want to miss it. It's starting to get livening up. We got a couple people joining the team. More people are hanging out. And so it's going to get a bit more unfamily friendly and spicy and funny. But become a member of Rumble Premium to watch that show. Smash the like button. Share the show right now with everyone you know. Hey, if you really do like the work that I do in this morning show, we are not like Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. We don't have billions of dollars from who knows where. Carriage fees, I guess, to just pump into crazy marketing, though we have been doing some. If you believe that we are better than CNN, then copy the URL to this live stream and share it wherever you can. Tell people to subscribe. You guys should subscribe. Join the show. Join our Discord server at timcast.com to get active. Let's read the news. Trump considers criminal charges for USAID staff after DOJ uncovered wild abuse. Oh, and I got it pulled up for you guys. Federal workers at USAID could find themselves behind bars for fraud after DOJ uncovered a massive spending scandal at the program. Daily Mail has learned. Peter Morocco, deputy administrator designate at the USAID, provided the House Foreign Affairs Committee with a briefing on Capitol Hill Wednesday while discussing the review of foreign aid implemented by President Donald Trump. Morocco told the committee he is considering sending criminal recommendations to the Justice Department regarding actions within USAID being exposed by Elon Musk's DOJ. Apparently, there's still judicial action that has even come out as late as this morning. Rep. Keith Self, Texas, who was in the meeting, told the Daily Mail. They intend to refer USAID officials to the DOJ. Oh, boy. Nothing he shared, noting how fraud is a criminal act. Indeed, it is. The Republicans shared that Morocco left open the possibility that both USAID workers and grant recipients could be recommended for crimes. Let's go! The recipients I want to see get locked up. And that's why, my friends, over in, you know what we should do? You know we haven't done in a little bit? Let's go to Google Trends. I didn't even think about this. We'll go to Google Trends. Let's explore Google Trends. We'll try a criminal lawyer. Ooh, I love this one. Trending now, criminal lawyer. Did you guys see this? And then we'll jump down here and we'll type in District of Columbia. Let's see what we got. We got a couple spikes in the past couple of days. Oh, it's the past day. Past day is always super low. We got to go past. Let's go past week. Let's see what we got. All right. It's kind of chilled out, it looks like. But we do have a massive spike here. Let's take it back 30 days. Criminal. Oh, my heavens me. So right around the time DOJ began digging in, criminal lawyer has spiked from nothing in the D.C. area to whoo. I wonder what that correlates to. Very interesting. There are some other search terms I won't bring up. But actually, why don't we do this? Let's try fraud. Fraud? Let's see what ends with fraud. So this does skew things a little bit. But, you know, I don't know. Fraud seems to be popping up a little bit. We'll see. I think these people are going to jail. I think Loudoun County, Virginia is largely propped up by illicit programs. How much you want to bet some dude's buddy got a grant from the government for some BS because his buddy, this is how it works. Someone's rich and they say, hey, I'm going to back you for Congress. I'm going to put money in your campaign. The guy says, okay, I'm going to make sure that we can get a grant to your nonprofit where you're on the board. And that's the game that's being played with D.C. And where does that money come from? Well, to be honest, it's technically your tax dollars. But I don't like saying tax dollars because that's not the way that modern monetary theory works. It's basically the U.S. prints money and extracts it whenever they see fit and just rips your buying power away from you. So it's technically your tax dollars, but really it's just causing inflation to give money to people who shouldn't get it so they don't have to do any work. And that's Loudoun County for you. Here we go. If they are detecting outright fraud, not just bad programs, not just ignoble programs, not just programs that don't support the national interest of the United States, if they're finding fraud, then absolutely the wrongdoers should be prosecuted, Rep. Self said. I'm here for it. I love this. Take a look at these protesters. People hold placards as the USAID building sits closed to employees. It was on February 3rd. There are a bunch of protests I've seen. You'll notice that most of the Democrats who are protesting in favor of USAID call it USAID. And they're under the impression USAID provides foreign aid. That's not. It's the U.S. Agency for International Development. And what is international development? I don't know. It means like instead of, say, fixing the roads or the bridges in your town, we're going to send billions of dollars overseas for gender studies. Not a joke. I got it pulled up. We'll get to it. Doge actually just suspended payments where they gave $500,000 to make mice transgender. Indeed. CNN claimed Trump was lying when he claimed that the money was being spent to make mice transgender. And oh boy, they had to issue a correction. I kid you not. Let me say that again. CNN had to issue a correction when they said Trump falsely said that the government was funding transgender mice. And then shortly after said, oops, and removed it. Yeah, they tried adding context. Sure. Now, let me ask you, who are these people? I mean, maybe these people work there. And so, fine, I get it. But most Americans, especially these liberals, they don't know what USAID is. You got a group of protesters out in Charlestown, West Virginia. Oh, don't make the mistake. Charleston and Charlestown are two different cities. We had one incident where a prominent individual was told to come to Charlestown, and then he texted us saying he was here, and in fact, he was in Charleston some 6 hours away. I digress. There are some people protesting. I maybe want to send a camera guy down there and ask him, what does USAID stand for, and what do they do? Because they're going to tell you it's U.S. foreign aid. They're giving food and water to starving children. That's probably what they'll say. I mean, honestly, they'll probably say, I don't know. And I'll say, okay, then why do you want it to have money? That's insane, isn't it? Indeed it is. So I don't know who these people are who are defending it other than cultists. Self noted that Morocco and USAID would not share their plans for criminal recommendations unless they had a rock-solid paper trail. You're going to have a paper trail to prove that, Self added, and I doubt that they would refer anyone without a very strong paper trail. Another source in the meeting who spoke with Daily Mail confirmed the potential legal action. Morocco briefed the full House Foreign Affairs Committees, Democrats and Republicans, that the waste, fraud, and abuse at USAID was more severe than initially presumed. He told lawmakers that multiple referrals to the DOJ for criminal prosecution were being considered. Woo-hoo-hoo. Let's go. The conduct in question arose because of USAID's decentralized accountability system that often left grantees on the ground using American tax dollars in ways that were both inappropriate and potentially illegal. Though Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been tasked to lead USAID, Morocco is the one running point on many of the agency's operations. Well, the former agency, I would say. Thousands of employees have been put on administrative leave after Musk noted that the agency was rotten to the core with fraud. The House Foreign Affairs Committee held a hearing last month about the wasteful spending found at USAID and the State Department. During the session, Republicans decried frivolous projects like, quote, $2 million to conduct sex change surgeries in Guatemala through a trans-led organization. What? Why? Why are we $2 million? I got an idea. How about, I always got these proposals. Instead of giving $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, we do a lottery for combat veterans who were injured, wounded, disabled, and somebody wins $2 million. How about that? I mean, Democrats would probably oppose it, which is insane, but sure. Here we go. We got more. $22 million to increase tourism in Tunisia and Egypt. Why? Why don't we increase tourism to Palm Beach or Gatlinburg? Come on. $22 million? Democrats argue that USAID's spending is critical to forward U.S. objectives abroad and have recently noted that Musk and Trump's handling of the agency has provoked fears of Ebola spreading due to USAID funding for prevention programs being halted. Let me tell you the truth, okay, guys? Can I tell you the truth? I'm going to tell you the truth. There's two big reasons that they spend this money the way they do. Two big reasons. The first, the money doesn't actually go to sex changes, and you know it. It's going to the politicians and their kickbacks. The U.S. can't say we're bribing Guatemalan officials, right? Right. So what they do is they say we're issuing a grant for some reason. Maybe they could have chosen a better one than this. And the money likely gets siphoned off to prominent politicians and individuals or taken as taxes, and they get a kickback. You know what I'm saying? The other reason is this one has been a big talking point for some time. It is to prop up the petrodollar. If everybody in the world has dollars, they want the dollars to have value, right? So let's say only the U.S. and India use dollars. If you went to some guy and said, we'll give you $1 million, they'll be like, okay, it's only good in 2 countries. The BRICS currency is useful everywhere. Maybe I'll take it, but it's not as valuable, right? But if you go to India, and India is sitting on $1 billion, they want to use that. The idea is, if we give 10 different countries, yikes, so that's crazy breaking news. If we give 10 different countries US dollars, they all want things for it. They'll trade it amongst each other. So the U.S. is trying to strengthen the petrodollar by giving money to corrupt individuals all around the world so that they're incentivized to use it with each other. We control the production of it. It's a racket, ain't it? Democrats argue that USAID spending is critical to forward U.S. objectives abroad and have recently noted that Musk and Trump's handling of the agency has provoked fears of Ebola spreading due to USAID funding. We read that one. This week, the Supreme Court ruled that $2 billion in USAID funding that Trump froze would have to be thawed and delivered. They didn't explicitly say that. They said, we out. So they removed a stay on a freeze on It's on a Trump order to stop payment, which means the order to stop payment is unfrozen and the payment must go through, despite the fact the lower court's ruling is a temporary restraining order, which means that theoretically, if Trump proves in the merits the money was fraudulent, they have to return the money, but the money will already be given out. It's nuts. Nuts. Last week, U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols rejected pleas that came in a lawsuit from employees to keep a temporary block on the government's plan. The agency also said it was cutting U.S.-based workforce by about 2,000 employees. Now, that's all fine and dandy. But my friends, y'all heard about how the IRS might fire 45,000 of its 90,000 workforce? I'm going to say this to all of you. Anybody who is mad about that, we can't be friends. The IRS gutting half its workforce. Ron Paul, I'm imagining him sitting in his living room in a rocking chair with a cup of coffee, and he turns the TV on, and it's Donald Trump saying the IRS is putting a plan together to lay off half its workforce, 45,000 people, in a single tear and a smile on Ron Paul's face. Maybe not. Maybe he just started busting out laughing and slapping his leg while playing the spoons. But let's take a look at where we currently are with Doge and USAID. Let's talk about USAID waste and abuse. Now, they don't go as far as say fraud, because fraud is a legal crime. And I put it this way. I would call it semantic or colloquial fraud. That's how I explained it yesterday. You know what we mean when we say fraud. Okay. If some dude starts a nonprofit and then a month later says, give me $10 million so I can research sloths crossing the street to protect the animals. And then the government's like, sure thing, buddy, here's $10 million. And then homie pays himself $1 million a year salary. And we're sitting there going like, how much work is good? Come on. It's fraud, okay? It may not be deception because the guy said, I'll do my best. No guarantees I save a sloth. And the government agreed to it so they can say it was all above board. No one was deceived. The American people were. Because behind our backs, you were extracting our buying power. And for what? Here we go. They say for decades, USAID has been unaccountable to taxpayers as it funnels massive sums of money to the ludicrous and in many cases malicious pet projects of entrenched bureaucrats with next to no oversight. For example, oh man, here we go. $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces. Huh? $70,000 for production of a DEI musical in Ireland. Wow. $2.5 million for electric vehicles for Vietnam. Why? Well, I'm going to pause real quick. Is there information on this one? Because I'd like to see, I'm curious. $2.5 million for electric vehicles. Who are they buying them from? Then you start to get some of this, right? They get $2.5 million. Vietnam then orders from what? Honda, Tesla, Chrysler, whatever. Perhaps. Ooh, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. That sounds like they gave one dude a grant. $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. Well, heavens, what will we do without it? Hundreds of thousands, millions. Oh, boy. Wow. How about this one? You ready for this? San Antonio nonprofit targeted by Doge defends spending while migrant shelter was empty. Migrant shelter was empty. Now, okay, let's pause for a little bit. Just because it's empty doesn't mean it's not being utilized, right? I mean, let's say you build a shelter and it's being funded and it needs to remain open in the event you need to shelter migrants. And then guess what? Trump deports them all. You can then say, guess we'll shut down this facility. But what happens if more illegal immigrants cross the border? Well, now you don't have a facility, right? So maybe it makes sense. Or maybe it's all one big scam. Here's the story. From News 4 San Antonio, they write, our News 4 I-team Waste Watch report about a San Antonio nonprofit sparked outrage on social media. The group was paid $18 million a month to operate a shelter for migrant teenagers, despite it being empty for a year. Come on. Does anybody really believe this is legitimate? I don't. Hi Avila's report on endeavors was viewed millions of times after being posted by Elon Musk. His Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, initially uncovered the group's contract and had it canceled. Endeavors, established in the 1960s, provided housing and wellness services for military veterans and the homeless. In 2021, its mission and its revenues expanded when it landed a government contract to house unaccompanied migrant teenagers. The teens aged 13 to 17 were housed in a shelter in Pecos in West Texas, where they received medical care and counseling, including visits from therapy dogs and gardening activities. Well, okay. I mean, that sounds like we got something going on. These are minors, right? What seems to be the problem? 2021 federal disclosure forms show $533,000 went to pay for music therapy. Well, teenagers need rock and roll, baby. Maybe some metalcore. Some all that remains. A source within Endeavors who did not want to be identified due to restrictions in the government contract said the therapy was necessary because the teens from Honduras and other countries had been through traumatizing experiences. Indeed. Perhaps Adam's Song by Blink-182 could help them come to realize that life is an adventure. At the time, the unaccompanied minors were sleeping on the floor of Customs and Border Protection facilities due to an overwhelming immigration surge. The Endeavors shelter was occupied from March of 21 to March of 23, and again from September 23 to February 24. During those periods, Endeavor said it served 40,000 unaccompanied minors. In March of 24, when the government stopped using the shelter, Endeavor says its expenses continued because the contract required it to stay at 24/7 operational readiness, paying to lease the property, medical facilities, vaccine refrigeration, and hundreds of cameras required for security. In a post on X, the Doge said terminating the contract saves taxpayers $215 million annually. Indeed. And with Donald Trump gutting and ending illegal immigration, good. Now, hold on there a minute. Why was it empty? According to some reports, it was made empty because the conditions were extremely squalid. Is that the right word? Let's pull up. Let's see if I can find this Endeavor's shutdown conditions. So I believe it was Fox News who. You can't do it because Endeavor flight attendants protest equal pay. Uh-oh. That was the plane that crashed, remember? Migrant facility, San Antonio, Doge. I believe it was Fox News said that the conditions were so horrible that they had to shut it down. Doge says Texas nonprofit with former Biden transition team members reaped millions operating empty facility. Indeed. Oh, and by the way, breaking news, they're going to censure Al Green for screaming at Donald Trump. Based. Let's see. Cash portfolio investments were massive. Ooh, this has got even more juicy details. Doge said a former U.S. ICE employee joined Family Endeavors in early 21, where they helped the organization secure a sole source HHS contract for overflow housing from licensed care facilities. Since March of 24, they paid $18 million a month to keep it operational, despite it being empty, used for housing for unaccompanied migrant children that was previously at the center of reports of poor conditions. The payments continued. So that was my understanding in the reporting. Basically, the conditions were poor, and you got to wonder, How many other contracts like this are completely illegitimate? Oh boy. Strap in, boys. $375 billion EPA slush fund handled by John Podesta gave billions to charities founded only months earlier. You want to come to me and tell me that's legitimate? I'm going to call shenanigans. Let's grab this story, my friends, but don't forget to smash that like button, share the show. Let's read. The Biden admin funneled at least $20 billion into environmental groups, most of which had only recently been founded, the Post has discovered. Some are arguing that this was a last-minute panicked operational slush fund that before, with Biden being like, they knew Biden was going to lose, and they were like, we need a backup plan. And that backup plan was send billions of dollars through circuitous means to various NGOs so that they could use it to fund Democrats down the line to compete with Trump in the midterms. I'm not saying that's true, just some speculation from the internet. They go on to say, in one case, former Vice President Kamala Harris handed over a check for nearly $7 billion to Bethesda, Maryland-based group Climate United Fund, which does not appear in the IRS's charities database and has no federal filings. Let's go, baby. Come on. You know what's going on. I know what's going on. They know what's going on. Kamala Harris handed over $7 billion to a charity that does not appear in the IRS database with no filings. Shenanigans. The nonprofit fund had only been incorporated in Delaware on November 30th, 2023, according to public records, 5 months before Harris handed over the cash in 24. Are you kidding me? They file. 5 months later, Kamala Harris gives them $7 billion. That's a B right there, ladies and gentlemen. Billion. DOJ, Pam Bondi Cash need to rip that to shreds. I'm saying full-on investigation, every book, binder, dresser, whatever, you name it, every office, every person. We got to figure out what that's all about. The Climate United Fund then announced the historic investment in a press release, noting the group's work delivers benefits like cleaner air and increased energy security. However, because the company is so new, there's no publicly published accounting of how it plans to spend the $7 billion. Projects have been announced, including $10.8 million pre-development loan solar project on tribal lands in eastern Oregon and Idaho, and a $32 million solar energy project at the University of Arkansas. But they represent only a drop in the bucket of the grant's amount. Ethically speaking, it's concerning, said Lori Styron, CEO of Charity Watch, an independent charity watchdog group. What was the purpose of creating middlemen entities when there are so many established groups in the climate space with good track records? What was the value added in by doing it this way, especially with such large sums of taxpayer funds? The cash for the charity came from a huge $370 billion climate slush fund of taxpayer money overseen by John Podesta, a political consultant who was chair of Hillary Clinton's failed 2016 bid for president and White House chief of staff to Bill Clinton. Interesting. I warn all of you not to look up Andrew Breitbart's comments on John Podesta. Anyway, moving on. In 2022, President Joe Biden named Podesta to helm the Climate Fund, which resulted from the Inflation Reduction Act, a 2022 law that was aimed at combating climate change and creating clean energy. Last year, EPA advisor Brent Efron was caught on video describing how the agency hastily parceled out a related $20 billion climate fund that was held by Citibank before the end of the Biden administration. Get the money out as fast as possible before they come in. It's like we're on the Titanic and we're throwing gold bars off the edge, he said in a video posted by online activist group Project Veritas. Remember when I said that, my friends? How did I describe it? I said, baby, we're on the Titanic and they are stealing the China and running for the lifeboats. That was the game. They knew years in advance. Here's what I think. I think they knew with Trump's victory in 2016, he wasn't supposed to win. They had lost control. Who's they? The deep state, the bureaucratic state, the intelligence agencies, whatever you want to call it. They had lost control of the narrative machine and they knew they were done. 2020 was a last-ditch effort. They knew they could not do it twice, but they needed 4 years to rip the system to shreds and steal as much as possible. And here we are. Now, I don't know if they're going to go to jail or get caught or how this plays out. My bet will be patsies will take the fall. But we'll see, man. Efron was acting in his private capacity when he made the comments, which expressed his personal views. An attorney representing him said. Mark S. Zaid told the Post. He also claimed the comments had nothing to do with the funds which had been administered. Now, Lee Zeldin, the new EPA chief, said he wants to claw back the cash doled out by the Climate Fund. On Monday, he called on the agency's inspector general to investigate. The Biden EPA gold bar scheme was designed to limit government oversight while doling out funds to far-left organizations pushing DEI and environmental justice, Zeldin told the Post in a statement. Of the 8 pass-through entities that received funding from the pot of $20 billion in tax dollars, various recipients have shown very little qualification to handle a single dollar, let alone several billions of dollars. I have zero tolerance for waste and abuse at the EPA. A spokeswoman for the Climate United Fund told the Post that the Biden-controlled EPA encouraged groups to work with coalitions to receive the cash. She said that the EPA cash out of the Climate United Fund is parked with Calvert Impact, a related nonprofit. Oh, boy. The Post found 3 entities called Calvert Impact, all of them based in Bethesda, making it more difficult to track the flow of money. How about that? In another example, the similarly named Justice Climate Fund. I love it. They're just recycling the same names now. Is a Washington, D.C. based nonprofit, which was set up in 2023, has yet to submit a tax filing to the IRS and has no information about its principles on its website. The group received $940 million from the EPA. It lists its aims as working with community partners to drive transformative investments focused on reducing pollution, among other goals. I got a pitch to the Trump administration. How about this? There's a group that it's a nonprofit, and actually, I want to make sure I get the name right. So let me make sure I can pull this one up because there's 2 names. There's 2 names. They do great work. Whoop. Let's grab this. Here we go. And I want to make sure I get the name right. There are 2 organizations. There's O'Keefe Media Group, which we know, and then they have another one because there's a nonprofit arm, and I want to make sure I get the name right. O'Keefe Media Group, I believe, is James O'Keefe is for profit. So one could say the federal government could contract the O'Keefe Media Group for certain jobs. But what about giving them money? I'm pretty sure O'Keefe Media Group is a for-profit business. It doesn't mean that he's operating just for profit, but I think James has. Is this it? Yes, it's the Citizen Journalism Foundation. There we go, baby. Donate to CJF today. Let's pull up James O'Keefe. I got a pitch. If they're going to be sending $7 billion or more to their cronies, how about this? Is there perhaps a mis and disinformation fund? Maybe the federal government could give James O'Keefe $7 billion. Oh my God. Could you imagine what James could do with $7 billion? O'Keefe Media Group would operate forever. Wow. Let's do this. Let's say that, what are the current interest rates? What are current interest rates for savings? Let's just do this. Let's give James O'Keefe an endowment of $7 billion. They want to play these games. I'll play these games. We're looking at 0.41. It's pretty low. Let's say James puts $7 billion in cash. Let's say if I put $7 billion in cash in a bank at 0.41%, how much do I earn per month? We'll ask the old robot the question and see how much can we give James O'Keefe? Because you know he deserves it. You guys should check out the Citizen Journalism Fund. He's doing great work, man. Big fan. ChatGPT knows where we're going. It doesn't like that we're playing this game. We'll let it. ChatGPT sucks. Did it just freeze? Okay, here we go. You would earn $2.3 million per month in interest. Let's just do this. We'll take the $7 billion. We'll grant it to an account, and The money can't be spent by James. No, but he can have the interest. Yeah, the government interest alone would give James it's $2.39 million per month. It's $25 million a year. That's the game they were playing. Now, I'm joking. Well, I'm half joking. I'd love it if Citizen Journalism Fund actually got a massive multi-billion-dollar grant like that, because I think James does good work. That being said, if we're talking about a group getting $940 million from the EPA, and you've got the Climate Justice Fund and the Justice Climate Fund, oh boy, this is what they're doing. When you get $7 billion, you don't need to use that money right away. You put it into various accounts. And look, let's be honest, like nobody's putting it in a standard savings account. You can put it in a high yield account. Let's see, like, what's current high yield savings interest? Because I'm pretty sure it's higher than that. It's probably like 1 point something. You'd be getting $5 million per month. High yield could be, whoa. National average is 0.41, but some institutions provide competitive rates up to 4.75% or higher. Holy crap. Oh, yeah, look at that. Open Bank has a 0.41. That's wrong. All right, baby, let's increase it by an order of magnitude. You put $7 billion on the books for James O'Keefe. He's cranking out $20 million per month in interest alone. Insane. And then he can just take the $2 million, leave the rest, and let it compound. This is nuts. Understand, they are creating permanent funding sources for their criminal enterprise. That is my opinion over where money like this ends up. I'm not saying, I don't know nothing about this Justice Climate Fund, climate justice, whatever they're doing. I'm saying the grand scheme of things with the funneling of this money, in my opinion, is that they know they can put it to high yield savings. And not even that, that's stupid. They can put it into stocks. Nancy Pelosi can tell them exactly where they got to put the money, and they're going to make bank. It is infinite power to wage a resistance. Trump is going after this. Understand the reason why right now Trump's mission is largely Doge and why it's so important. He knows the deep state and the bureaucratic state are using this to provide themselves resources indefinitely that you will never compete with. You can't. Come on. You get paid. You put your paycheck in the bank. What interest do you get? $20 a month if you're lucky in a high yield savings? They're getting $20 million. Insane. There's more. Another third group, Power Forward Communities, Inc., was registered in 2023 and shows a total of just $100 in tax revenue in its tax filing for the year, according to public filings. Yet the Columbia, Maryland-based nonprofit somehow received $2 billion from the EPA fund. Holy crap. $2 billion. That's a B, ladies and gentlemen. The group said. So what could they pull off with that? $7 million a month? The group said it is part of a coalition of 5 other charities, including United Way Worldwide and Rewiring America, a Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit, which announced former Democratic Rep. Stacey Abrams would work as its corporate counsel in 23. Interesting. However, Rewiring America only registered as a corporate entity a year later in Delaware, in December of 24, according to public records. As of February 24th press release from the Power Forward Communities says the group has already committed $539 million to expand and preserve affordable housing, improve air quality, and create good-paying jobs by ramping up energy efficiency across the country. Tim Mayopoulos, the former CEO of the housing financial company Fannie Mae and a Democratic donor, is listed as the group's interim president and CEO. He contributed $5,600 to Joe Biden's presidential campaign in 2020, federal filings show. Power Forward Communities has no list of board members on its website, but does list job openings for government affairs, VP of communications, blah, blah, blah. Justice Climate Fund and Power Forward Communities did not return the Post's calls requesting comment. Maybe because there's nobody there who actually does communications and the emails just go unanswered. The FBI and the DOJ have both launched investigations into the grants, and bank accounts holding billions of dollars have been frozen as the EPA attempts to get it back, the New York Times reported Tuesday. Let's go! Donald Trump, Lee Zeldin, Elon Musk, you are doing the Lord's work. Bless your hearts. Look at this, man. Look at this story. A nonprofit forms, and then with no tax filings, with only just recently, they get $7 billion. They got caught. They have frozen the money based I got an idea. Guys, how about this? Instead of giving $7 billion, we break it up and give 1,000, or actually, I suppose we could do 7,000 disabled veterans, each get $1 million. How does that sound? I like it. Was my math right on that one? I think my math is right on that one. That would be based. Or we could just give one guy $7 billion. I don't know how crazy things would go if you did that, though, right? Just like one random disabled vet and be like, here's $7 billion. He'd be like, oh. Actually, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a real, you know what? I say that. I say, Trump, give tunnels to towers. Give them $7 billion. Problem solved. You put that money in a bank, like I already said, at 4% if you're doing a high yield savings, or you're doing bonds or whatever, and you're pumping out 20, 30 million. How many? You could buy 50 houses per year for disabled vets and for the families of fallen soldiers and first responders. I will tell you this. The one thing that I really despise the most about our current structure of society, and you know, I try to be careful because I understand the structure of the market in society is just the way it is largely, but it always really pissed me off that disabled firefighters, police officers, soldiers, first responders get nothing. I mean, it's not like they get literal nothing, right? There's funds to help them, but I always just like, bro, there's a dude playing baseball right now who's worth millions of dollars. He's got 7 homes, and I'm not trying to drag the guy, right? Any of these professional sports players who are wealthy. So let's do this. I'll leave the sports guys out of it. Can you believe it, that there are permanent children who complain on camera to millions of people every day? They aren't running into burning buildings. They aren't fighting our wars. They aren't pulling children out of the rubble. No, they sit there in their stupid beanies complaining, and they make tons of money. Meanwhile, the first responders, you get my point. My point has always been the structure of our society. I'm okay with taxes, and I'll tell you why. I think taxes are misappropriated. I think they're spent poorly. This proves it. The government is corrupt. My beautiful dream of a country is like, yo, if you're an EMT and you're like rushing in to save someone's life from a car wreck, and then like the gas tank blows and it like, damn, your arm gets struck, and then you're like permanently paralyzed in your left arm. You know, I think that person should just get a ton of money. Like we are going to make sure you want for nothing. If you're a family of a 9/11 first responder or 9/11 first responder, you should want for nothing. You should be the ultimate sacrifices made by the bravest and most honorable and noble of people in this country are they're underserved. When you come back from combat, if you're a military veteran, you should want for very little. I'm not saying combat veterans deserve to be multimillionaire billionaires, but you should have more than some guy who complains on the internet. But look, I'm not going to fault the market for being what it is. I am going to say this. Look where our money goes. It goes to slush funds for corrupt politician warmongers who actually put brave men and women in line of fire for BS reasons, push war for the sake of profit so that they can live and be kings and manipulate the public. That's really what it's all about. Money is power. They don't really care about the hard currency. They care about the access and control. That's why some people they want to be in politics, because it's comparable power. Some people want to be famous. It's comparable power. I say this. $375 billion to corrupt crackpots. I'd rather see $1 billion in the hand of 375 disabled veterans, just to be billionaires. Your family will take taken care of. Thank you for your sacrifice. I wish our society focused more on that. Again, not going to fault the market for being what it is, but it always did irk me that firefighters get paid less than professional athletes, despite the fact that we have volunteer firefighters. Can you believe this? I'm sorry, man. I got to say this. Volunteer fire departments, you guys are amazing. We got a bunch out here in West Virginia. I show up sometimes when they do these cook-offs. I'll give big donations. It's crazy to me that there are people out there who will have golden toilets, figuratively, and it's because they play sports or they wrote a song. With all due respect to musicians, man, you wrote a song, and now you get millions of dollars. You are loved and cherished by all, and that dude volunteered on the weekends to run into burning buildings, to save children, to save families, to protect our communities. It's just wild to me. Just wild to me. I'm not going to fault the market. I'll say it again because I don't like communist solutions. If the market wants musicians to be rich and famous, so be it. I just think we can have kind of a little bit of a mixed economy and stop giving money to crony, corrupt individuals. And then we shouldn't have to have Jon Stewart before Congress banging his fist on the table, demanding that we allocate funding to 9/11 first responders. I will always give the man respect for that, because I would do the same. It is laughably insane to me and disrespectful that a fight had to happen for 9/11 first responders. Like, can you believe that? The EPA said the air was safe to breathe. It was not. And these brave men, firefighters who ran to that building and then it collapsed on them, and their families should not have to deal with these problems and fight politically while from a wheelchair on a respirator, while these scumbag are taking $7 billion for their garbage BS nonprofits. Man, that stuff really pisses me off. Anyway, you get my point on all of that. I'm sure a lot of you agree, whatever. This is why I get pissed about all this stuff, because we hear these stories every day. I watch those Tunnels to Towers commercials, man. That nonprofit is fantastic. I watch it when they're like, Dave Portnoy does the One Bite Pizza reviews, and then Dave's like, you guys are great, man. I love what you're doing. And I'm like, I love what they're doing too. And there's this one story, a woman, she's like, my husband got cancer and died. I get a call. They say, we're going to take care of your mortgage for you. And I'm like, that's amazing. Why do we rely on begging the public and the private sector doing these things, while at the same time, these Democrat politicians were giving out billions of dollars to their cronies? Talk about backwards and corrupt. Let's fix this. So shout out to Zeldin, to Trump, to Elon, to the entire Doge team, to Marco Rubio, to all of those working on shutting this crap down, freezing these accounts and saying, you ain't getting a penny. Well, here's the latest controversy. My friends, the Supreme Court has denied Trump's request to block $2 billion in foreign aid. It's a little bit more complicated than just say that the Supreme Court's forcing him to pay it. Basically, by refusing to intervene, a lower court's ruling stopping Trump's stop orders is so convoluted. Okay, so they're going to pay $2 billion, and they call it foreign aid. These people are evil. They are stupid, and they are evil. It's not foreign aid. That's a lie. Lie. It's USAID. So the Supreme Court doesn't want to intervene. In a brief unsigned opinion, the court noted that February 26th deadline for the government to make the payments had already passed. It instructed the U.S. District Attorney Judge Amir Ali to clarify what obligations the government must fulfill to ensure compliance with the temporary restraining order that Ali has entered into the case, paying attention to how feasible it is for the government to comply with those timelines. Ali is expected to hold a hearing on the aid group's motion for a preliminary injunction, which, if granted, would suspend the freeze on foreign assistance. Yeah, gender studies, foreign assistance. Let's go back. Come on. $32,000 for a transgender comic book. Foreign assistance. Oh, you see how they lie? You see how they're lying to you? They're lying to you. They're lying to you. I can't stand these people. $32,000 for a transgender play or whatever that said. Give $32,000 to any random firefighter, and I'll say, okay, any random one. I don't care. You just pull a lottery and be like, congratulations, here's $32,000. Buy yourself a car. You deserve it. Any cop, any EMT, any soldier. Here's a bonus. You deserve it. I don't care if the soldier is enlisted and he moves boxes all day from one building to another. He deserves it more than gender studies in what was it, Peru? Was that what it was? Transgender comic book in Peru. I can't stand this stuff, dude. He's going to hold this hearing. 4 of the court's conservative justices would have granted the government's request to put the order on hold. So basically what happens is, if the order is, Trump's order is frozen by a lower court, which they don't have the authority to do, which is so insane, and the Supreme Court needed to assert that. That's what Alito was basically saying. That means Trump's going to have to pay this, or the federal government will have to pay it. But the question then becomes, if the payments are illegal, and a court is ordering Trump to engage in illegal action, Trump's going to have to say no. And then the question becomes, how do they enforce it? Trump, as the president, said, we are not paying this out. If a court ruled in the merits, I would agree Trump should pay it, 100%. But the idea that Trump said, hold on there a minute, this looks bunk, this is not legitimate, and then a court said, no, pay it anyway. I say shenanigans. If the executive branch, which is tasked with enforcing the law, says, pause, the court order should be a stay until the merits are ruled upon. Meaning, don't do anything. Don't spend the money. Don't pay it out. We need to rule on the merits. What they're saying now is Trump's freeze is suspended, so the payments must resume. That makes literally no sense. The court should say, we should not move anything. We should hear the merits of the case, to determine whether or not the money is legitimate and then decide whether or not Trump is right or wrong. That would be a real check on the executive power. That's not what they're doing. They're saying outright Trump can't freeze what he views as illegal payments. Let's try this another way. A corporation is caught having smuggled in, let's say, 50 kilos of fentanyl. And Trump says, freeze their bank accounts. And then a lower court says, no, unfreeze their accounts. Trump says, wait. We're in the middle of investigating a crime. And a court's going to let them take their money and run? That's insane. What would happen normally is the court would say that the accounts have been frozen pending an investigation. They would have to argue before the court on the merits of whether or not they are, if there's a preponderance of evidence that requires their accounts to be frozen, meaning a due process on the merits of the criminal case against them. The corporation would then say, these charges are false. Here's our rebuttal. And the judge can then say, I do not believe there is strong enough evidence at this time to freeze this funding. That's not what happened. They didn't rule on the merits at all. And the question of whether or not they would likely succeed on the merits was not answered either by the Supreme Court, with Alito outright bringing it up in his dissent, saying we should actually be issuing a statement on whether or not we believe the executive branch would succeed on the merits. Then we can issue. So they need to do it. They need to take the case. They didn't. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I would surmise Trump might say, nice try. Not happening. Enforce it. We know where the monies like this were going. Nonprofits that just formed getting $7 billion, and we're going to pay out $2 billion. The argument they're making is, but it's for work already completed. Yeah. If a dude from McLean, Virginia said, I ran a campaign for climate change and it was $1 billion, I'd also be like, yeah, dude, that's not real. Okay. Work completed. It's not real work. Sorry. Sue me about it. And that's what should happen. The people who want the money should have to go to court and justify the work they did and prove before the American public, this is the work we do and why it's warranted. And I do think it's fair to a certain degree to say some people, maybe some of the work done is like they cleaned windows. Okay, we'll pay the people who cleaned the windows. That's fine. But I'd be willing to bet it turns out much of this money is fraudulent nonsense. So why should it be released? Here's the key point. If Trump's freeze is frozen itself temporarily and the money gets paid out, if they then rule on the merits that Trump was correct, they will never get that money back. And it's yours. Now, there is still an issue. One might say that's not fair. If someone did real legitimate work and then they're not paid and they have to sue to get it, how is that fair? I go, welcome to business. That's literally how it goes. That's literally how it goes. There are every single day, someone contracts another person. They say, I'll give you $5,000 to like seal the blacktop on my property. The company does it. The guy comes out and says, whoa, what is this? That you did it wrong. It's improper. I'm not paying for this. You got to do it again. The guy says, no, they go to court over it. That's called a civil dispute. Trump has entered into a civil dispute with these people and they should have to answer for it. Of course, likely not going to happen because the game is rigged, my friends. But it does seem like Trump and his administration are winning in this regard. Now, I suppose we'll have to save much of this next conspiracy for the next one, the Trump hot mic moment. And the reason why I wasn't initially going to lead with a story like this, but I guess we'll give it its own segment, is because it's so dumb. Trump says, thank you, John Roberts. I won't forget it. And now the left is losing their mind. Look at this one. Donald Trump rips the mask off of John Roberts' court in one sentence. What? He said, thank you. You know what I love about this? Trump said thank you to John Roberts. And they're like, that proves it. And it's like, for all you know, like Donald Trump was getting ready for his speech and he was eating a hot dog and a mustard dripped onto his tie. And he was like, oh, I got mustard on my tie right before my big moment. And John Roberts goes, Trump. And he holds up a tie. And then he goes, John, you saved me. Thank you. And then he walks out, shakes his hand. I won't forget it. My point is, he might be thanking John Roberts for something incredibly innocuous. It could have been like Trump didn't have a cell phone charger. And he was like, I want to tweet something. And John was like, he's like, let me go grab a cell phone charger for you. And he's like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I'll go grab one from my bag. And he's like, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And then he plugs in his phone. He's like, hey, man, I won't forget it. It could be something so innocuous. And the Democrats and liberals are like, this proves a grand conspiracy at the Supreme Court. Get out of here. Roberts just ruled against Trump. These people have lost their minds. You know, what can be said, my friends? Smash the like button, share the show, get your super chats in. We're going to grab some of your chats and your Rumble rants now. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And we're live Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. Within a month or two, it's going to be Monday through Friday because the culture war is going to be moving. We are planning live in-studio events where you as members of the Timcast Discord community will sit down in the hot seat and debate us and others. It's a multi-pronged effort. Go to timcast.com, click join us, get in the Discord server, and then when we announce these events, we're aiming to do them every week. Maybe it's going to be hard to go every week, but we're aiming for every week. It's going to be expensive because we need a venue for it. The idea is we'll have our debate subjects prepared. We'll have our guests, as we often do. And then we're going to allow members of the Discord community to submit talking points for the debate. And we will bring you up to sit down in the hot seat and give you a couple minutes to state your positions. And then we all debate. The idea is we want to make you guys who are watching active. Many of you watching, you're passive. And that's okay, but we want you to be active. And so a lot of people have asked, how do I get involved? I don't even know where to begin. It's simple. You can go to timcast.com, join the Discord community, and start talking every day with like-minded individuals. The Discord, it's a chat room with a bunch of different subjects. There's fitness, there's gaming. Podcasts have launched from it. Roman Nation, Quiet Part Podcast are two of them, for instance. And then you will join the Culture War show where we will have a live audience and y'all can come up and join the debate. That way, we also at the same time decentralize the public discourse. There are a lot of prominent individuals that hold big microphones, and we want to find the people to give them their big break. Right now, I know for a fact there's probably 60, 70, 80, 90, a million, who knows how many people who are smarter, faster, and stronger than I am. And the question is, why aren't they sitting here having this conversation? Why aren't they on the debate stage challenging Ben Shapiro or David Pakman or whoever else? And for a lot of people, it's just figuring out how to get into the fray. So we are going to create that moment and create that bridge between the population and the community and the space. Some people might come up and boy, their debate points might be real dumb. Some people might come up and hit it out of the park with both humor and insight. And then bang, next thing you know, they got a big YouTube channel, a big Rumble channel, a big Spotify podcast, whatever it might be. Don't forget to also join Rumble Premium for all of our exclusive premium shows like The Green Room. Use promo code TIM10. Let's grab some super chats. We've got a couple minutes. Tim Brackett says, if Trump has to pay the $2 billion, why not do so in installments of like $1 a month? Indeed. Or in pennies. $2 billion in pennies dished out. Got to do something with the pennies. Free Men Die Free says, ignore the Supreme Court decision. They can't legalize fraud just because the fraudsters already performed the work. Interesting. Let's grab a Rumble rant over here. Let's see. Vincent says, according to your criteria less than an IRL, LDS is the supplier, you mean superior Christian denomination. I was mostly joking. Mostly. The joke I made was we were talking about fertility rates and divorce and all those things. And then because Catholics have the lowest, one of the lowest divorce rates and highest fertility, I said Catholics are the superior Christians, sparking this whole like controversy between Protestants, Catholics, and otherwise. And so I was like, should I tweet this? And then Mary laughed and said yes. And then I typed it up and I said, should I do it? And then Phil and Mary both like, do it. And I was like, okay. And I tweeted it. It's half tongue in cheek. I do respect Catholics for having low divorce rates. Divorce is cringe. Very, very cringe. Let's go. Steve Overstreet says the shelter was being paid each month, paying each month more. We're saying paid more each month than my small city in the San Gabriel Valley's annual budget. I am the only IT tech in that city that manages 40K residents. Wow. Pat Smith just said, use Grok. I know. ChatGPT is just broken. Jeez, it takes so long. Terrible. Zoroark Graft says, why has ACB been one turncoat to Donald Trump? Why she has been turncoat since Trump Roe v. Wade ruling? Does it have to do with when Antifa protested her home and made her kids afraid? Indeed. I had that pulled up as well. So I'll get into that one to break down the Supreme Court conspiracy. Amy Coney Barrett, since the time that someone threatened the life of Brett Kavanaugh, seems to have flipped. And Jack Posobiec makes the argument that she is terrified and there's no protection for her. Yeah, I don't disagree. So we'll get into all that stuff, my friends. Once again, I ask you all to share the show with everyone you know. You can listen to us on Rumble, of course, and all podcast platforms. So really do appreciate you guys listening. Sharing is caring. Smash the like button. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Thank you all so much for hanging out. We're back again at noon with another segment and then more for the rest of the day. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all on the next show.